Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Thursday, October 20th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. We're talking Chiefs today with the beat writers and columnists and trying to bring a bit of reason to the rumors that are flying around about the possibility of signing players like Odell Beckham Jr. or Christian McCaffery. Columnists Vahe, Gregorian, and Sam McDowell, along with beat writers Jesse Newell and Herbie Teope, discuss what the Chiefs' biggest needs are and why they should not be in a panic mode. The show started as a lively SportsBeat Live discussion. Let's get right into it. Welcome to SportsBeat Live, our weekly show talking Kansas City Chiefs with you and with the folks in the media who know them best. And look who's here, Sam McDowell, Vahe, Gregorian, Herbie Teope. And I've just got an open-ended question to get things started this morning. Should Andy Reid just go ahead and start Odell Beckham this weekend and Christian McCaffrey and Brian Burns, or should they wait to sign these guys first and then maybe consider playing them? But Herbie, I'll go to you with this. What do you think? Beckham in the starting lineup on Sunday in San Francisco?
Hey, we are officially in speculation season part 2. Normally we go through this in in March leading up to free agency. Look, here's how I feel about OBJ. The guy hasn't been healthy since 2019. 3 major invasive surgeries. He's had 2 torn ACLs and a core muscle surgery. What are you getting with Odell Beckham Jr. at this stage of his career outside of his name? And yet if you're chasing past glory, what do you get with him when he doesn't even play special teams? You have 3 of those players that do that: McCole Hardman, Justin Watson, as well as Sky Moore. So when you look at the wide receiver core, to me, it just doesn't make sense. I know there's other names out there as well. Christian McCaffery. Now, he might make sense. The Chiefs did restructure Travis Kelce's contract to give them some cap room, because if you trade for a player, you have to absorb that contract. But as far as the OBJ stuff, does it make sense from a lot of people's point of view? It does, but to me, it just doesn't, because of what, his inability to stay healthy. And I just don't feel like you should chase past glory when he's had 3 major surgeries over the past 3 seasons. So I don't see him in the lineup. He has to pass a physical first, too.
Well, you mentioned Travis Kelce. Kelce's the one that has fueled the rumors with his podcast with his brother, and he wants Odell Beckham. And it was funny. If you haven't heard it, you should go and listen to at least the excerpt of Travis Kelce talking to his brother about restructuring the contract and having about $3.5 million available to. And to Travis Kelce, that's money that the Chiefs should and will use pretty soon. Jesse Newell's joined us. And Jesse, we're just in the middle of discussion about whether Odell Beckham Jr. will start for the Chiefs on Sunday at San Francisco. I'm still wavering on this, but what do you make of the rumors this week?
Well, yeah, usually where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, that's obvious. It seems like there probably is mutual interest there, but I'm sort of agreeing with Herbie, which is not a very good standing to be in usually. Like, that's sort of where I want to avoid. But, I think so. I wrote today about the man coverage. The Chiefs face a lot of man coverage. It's pretty much not a secret that sometimes the receivers struggle to beat that, which is something you're going to need. Now, I looked at the numbers, and 2 weeks ago, the Chiefs actually were the most productive team in the NFL in any game this season at beating man coverage when the Raiders tried to double up and triple up Travis Kelce. We saw MVS and McCole Hardman have huge games for them then, and were able to be productive. But it doesn't make as much sense to me, just because I think the guys that can help them beat man coverage are guys that have not been fully themselves so far, which is McCole Hardman with his knee injury, and then obviously Sky Moore, a rookie who is just getting comfortable. What we've seen so far is that, he's been productive when he's in there. He just hasn't completely grasped the whole playbook, and they're not comfortable putting him in there and giving him that huge role. Now, I think week 16, 17, 18, that potentially could happen. But right now, you're just sort of dealing with a rookie who is getting more comfortable with every passing week. So I think mostly what Odell Beckham Jr. could bring the Chiefs is something that Sky Moore could give them and McCole Hardman can give them when he's healthy. But again, I'm not the Chiefs. So if they decide Odell Beckham Jr., he's obviously young. He's a guy that's a little different situation than some of these guys that they brought in the past. But you do go back. It seems like every year that Chiefs fans go through this, like Le'Veon Bell's the missing piece. Josh Gordon's the missing piece. LaShawn McCoy's the missing piece. How much of those guys really helped in the past? Again, maybe OBJ is the exception. I can't say that, but it does seem like the Chiefs are at least sniffing around and seeing if there's potentially mutual interest there, if they can clear some room. So we'll see what happens from this point forward.
Jesse, I'm really impressed with KU's new reach on its recruiting efforts under Lance Leipold. That would be something else. Hey, just to chime in real quick, just the mention of those Le'Veon Bell, Josh Gordon type things. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that the OBJ situation rings of that more than it rings of something that's really a obvious solution. Maybe you guys have seen it. I don't really know his condition either. I mean, that ACL was just 10 months ago. Do we know that he's going to pass a physical, as Herbie points out? I mean, I suppose it wouldn't be talked about this much if it weren't likely he could. But I feel like if the Chiefs – look, a lot of times you have to kind of spackle together the way you improve, right? It's hard to do with big leaps and bounds in the middle of a season. But I'd sure like to be thinking about something more dynamic that could do a few different things, and that the recent track record is much more exciting with a guy like Christian McCaffery. It takes a little something different to get at Christian McCaffery, obviously, but if the thought is the Chiefs really need to catalyze this offense with something special, then I don't think OBJ is the answer.
If I can, you mentioned his ACL. He tore it in the Super Bowl, and if I'm not mistaken, that second torn ACL was like 16 months removed from his last torn ACL. So you're dealing with 2 torn ACLs for a wide receiver who turns 30 on November the 5th. So I just don't low risk, high reward, depending on what kind of contract I sign him to. But it's just you're dealing with damaged goods here.
And I'm not sure it's low risk. See, I hear people say that all the time, Herbie, but the risk is that you take out either McCole Hardman or Sky Moore from your rotation when those guys potentially could be better because they know the offense and they've been through it. And again, a guy like Sky Moore is just a rookie who's ascending and getting more comfortable with the playbook. So you have to take somebody out to put him in. And again, I'll just preface this always with, I'm not the Chiefs. So they have a better grasp of their roster and potentially what is needed in that regard. And listen, this is fun to talk about. Trades are fun. They're exciting. I mean, I'm looking right now as Shannon Sharp is discussing this on Undisputed. OBJ to KC. So, I mean, I get it. Like this is a national story. It's not just a local story. We all have fun talking about these sorts of things. But I think the reality of this might be a little bit different from the perception of this. OBJ is a big name. We know he's a huge personality. He's on Twitter defending himself with Chiefs fans yesterday. So all this stuff kind of builds up some fire. But as far as the results go and how much of an impact this potentially could make on the Chiefs when they might face the Bills and in Buffalo in the AFC Championship game, I just don't know how much that is and potentially how much better that would be than a healthy McCole Hardman or a developing Sky Moore.
I like Michael's comment. Healthy OBJ might have won that 50-50 ball. The one that MVS did not come down with. And yeah, I don't have the TV on in front of me, but just on Twitter the last 24 hours, we've seen OBJ to the Vikings, to the Bills, to the Chiefs, Packers, all sorts of destinations for OBJ. And Herbie, remind me, when is the trade deadline, and how might that factor into? Could a team make a move before the trade deadline?
You could possibly see that, and the trade deadline is after the Week 8 bye. I believe it's November the 1st. I don't have it in front of me, but I know it's the first week of November. And the Chiefs have been, they've been active. Remember last year they traded for Melvin Ingram, but they also showed some interest in Lonnie Johnson. We didn't know about that until Brett Veach revealed that during OTAs. So they are pinging away here. And when you gain cap space at this time of the year, you just saw Willie, special guest Willie, jumping off the cat tree behind me. But anyway, when you clear up some cap space at this time of the year, that may be a prelude to, hey, if we do make this trade, we have to absorb that contract for the rest of the year, and we just don't have the space. We need to build some space. So, like Jesse said, we're not the Chiefs, but some of the signs point to something might be happening.
Sam, your silence is deafening on this whole matter.
I mean, the Chiefs have the number 1 ranked offense in the NFL, and we're talking about giving up all they acquired in the Tyreek Hill trade to acquire offensive assets. So to me, if I am Brett Veach and I'm looking at how can I best improve this roster, it's with a move like Herbie mentioned that they made last year. It's a Melvin Ingram type move. I mean, I think the elephant in the room this year is their top draft, or Trent McDuffie hasn't played, but their 2 first-round draft picks have not contributed this year. Trent McDuffie has been injured, and George Karlaftis has been bad. He does not have a sack this year. Maybe he got half a sack on that Frank Clark play. But I mean, you look at his Pro Football Focus rankings; they're terrible every week. So if this is my roster, I need an edge rusher, and that's what I'd be targeting if I was going to give up draft capital. If I was going to eat up the only cap space I have for the remainder of the year, it's to get something that I feel like is an actual weakness. And I don't look at my wide receivers right now and think, man, I got to have another wide receiver to put me over the top. The Chiefs, like I said, they lead the NFL in points this year.
Yep. That leads me into another topic: is what are the biggest needs for this team, and how does the Bills game, in retrospect, kind of figure into that? What did we see at Arrowhead last weekend that amplifies those needs? And absolutely, listen, I agree with you, Sam, but I also look on the other side, the edges on both defense and offense, right? Lack of a pass rush and not not enough protection for Patrick Mahomes. Hey, Jesse, I enjoyed your latest breakdown of the film breakdown of Jesse takes a play every week. And please remind me who your partner is in crime on this.
Yeah, Brett Sabo. He's actually from around the area in Missouri, but he was a backup quarterback, I'm told, in high school around here, or maybe it was college. I don't want to sell him short, but he's great on the inside. He was a former offensive coordinator for high schools all over the place. And he does some great breakdowns. But mentioning just kind of the Von Miller sack that happened late. But go ahead, Blair, with
and that's yeah. So breaking down that play, one of the things that struck me, it was the sack. Chiefs had the 3-point lead. It was 20-17 in the fourth quarter. Chiefs had the ball. They get a touchdown here. I think they win the game. Instead, on 3rd and 6, the Bills get a sack of Mahomes, and they did it with a 3-man rush. 3-man rush. You can't have that. You absolutely can't have that. The Bills did a great job disguising their defense in that moment, and I thought Kelce got off the line a little too slowly, couldn't get open. But anyway, so I think the offensive tackles have not played well in the big moments, and the Chiefs aren't getting enough. The Chiefs are not getting home with 4, and the Bills got home with 3 in a big moment the other day. So I'm with Sam on this. There are needs bigger than wide receiver and running back, but one of the players that could be out there is the Burns from the Carolina Panthers. Could the Chiefs be looking in that direction? And how do you guys feel about just bigger needs for the Chiefs than wide receiver?
It just comes down to what you have to give up for them. I think that giving up a lot of draft capital would directly counter everything they did this last offseason. And if that's the requirement to go get a player like that, then it doesn't make a lot of sense to sort of extend this window in the offseason and then push your chips back all in the middle of the table. Week 8, week 9 of this season, you only get them for half a season. I think it would have made more sense to do a move like that in the offseason if that was the plan. I mean, this was clearly a need, especially going into the draft when a move like that would have been made or pre-draft. So absolutely, you got to check in on the Carolina Panthers. They have guys available. Those guys could help your roster, but it all comes down to what the cost might be. And the Chiefs are not going to be the only team. If Christian McCaffery is available, if Brian Burns is available, they're not going to be the only team that wants those 2 players, or that feels like those 2 players can help their roster. So I don't anticipate it would be a cheap cost.
So we had talked about how exciting this is, OBJ. By the way, Undisputed is still talking about it 7 minutes later on my screen. OBJ to KC, they are still discussing it. Let's talk about some boring stuff, because that's kind of what Sam is mentioning here. And this is where you have to come from it if you are Brett Veach. Okay, we talked about the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill. They got the draft capital. They are pushing their window open. They're saying, what the Chiefs are saying is, we have Patrick Mahomes. We plan on getting younger, getting these young guys in, developing them, and being Super Bowl contenders for the next 10 years. That's basically the decision they made. Okay, what has happened so far this year with the Chiefs? Okay, we thought the Bills were the best team in the NFL. The Bills are the best team in the NFL. We thought the Chiefs are probably the second best team, or somewhere around there. The Chiefs are probably the second best team, especially in the AFC. The rest of the AFC and the AFC West has fallen back. Okay, they are not as good as we thought. The rest of the AFC in general has probably fallen back. Who's the third best team in the AFC? Baltimore, maybe. I don't know. Cincinnati, maybe, and they struggled early on. So again, what has happened to the Chiefs is they basically stay the same. These other teams have probably gotten worse. The AFC West has gotten worse. And so why does this change anybody's mind? I mean, where this is barreling towards, again, if we're just being totally non-emotional about this, is a game for the AFC Championship in Buffalo where the Chiefs are probably 4 to 5 point underdogs. That sounds bad. And again, some of these things we're talking about in the margins, maybe the Chiefs become, if they get a Burns, a 3 point underdog instead of a 4 point underdog. But what happened last year? The Chiefs were a 7 point favorite in the AFC Championship game and lost, right, to the Bengals. So this is what Brett Veach's kind of master plan is right now. It's like, okay, there's going to be teams that pop up. Sam wrote a great piece about this last week. The Bills have popped up this year. They pushed all their chips in. They got Von Miller. They said, it's time to win now. It's time to take down the Chiefs now. Well, what has that bought them? It's probably bought them being a 4 or 5 point favorite in Buffalo in the AFC Championship game, in a game that the Bengals won last year because they had a chance. So again, the semantics of all this is like, we can talk till we're blue in the face about this edition can do this or this or that. We're probably talking about a half a point or a point in this game coming up against Buffalo at the end of the season, if it ends up the way the Chiefs are hoping right now. So that, to me, kind of to Sam's point, why would you shove everything back in the middle to try to gain 1 or 2 points here in the short term, when basically you're saying you're trying to build this thing for the long term and make sure that you're going to be good and in that conversation every single year. So I just don't see that much that has changed with the Chiefs, especially when you talk about if they got blown out by the Bills, maybe that's a different discussion. They lost by 4 and they were up in the fourth quarter. So I just don't see this as a burn it to the ground, change everything up. The Chiefs are probably in a pretty good position based off what they thought going into this year.
Just one thing, Jesse, you take me to this, and it's sort of in harmony with what you're saying, but sort of makes a little different point, I think. You know, the Chiefs did a lot of things in reaction to that Bengals loss. And, you know, there was a lot of, you know, just data they took from that into what they were going to do in the offseason. And part of the reason they lost that game was the inability to generate a pass rush on a team that had, what was it? Burrow was sacked like 17 times in the 2 games sandwiched around the Chiefs game. And as it stands right now, the Chiefs have sort of that same problem. And to the point that you guys have made, I mean, that seems to be the greatest need. And it's just interesting to me they did so much to try to address that, or at least thinking they were addressing that, and that has been flat, stagnant, whatever you want to call it. That's all. Just an observation that remains their vulnerability.
I do want to address, Blair. There's a couple of comments about my comments about Karlaftis in our comments section, which is great. Love the interaction. You know, somebody mentioned that he leads rookies and pressures. The percentage of pressures is much lower than his total. Like, George Karlaftis is getting a lot of snaps this year. He has over 300 pass rush or 300 snaps already. Secondly, you look at the totality of his contribution. For example, on Pro Football Focus, there are 180 players who are graded this year. Karlaftis is ranked 166th on the edge. So I'm not saying that George Karlaftis doesn't have a future. I still think he does have a long-term future in this league. But we're talking about what helps the team now. Like, that's a weakness right now. There's no doubt that they're not getting production out of that position. And by the way, it's not just about George Karlaftis. They're not getting production on the other side either. I think, you know, you talk about pressures. Frank Clark only has 12 all year. There's nobody in the NFL that has more snaps than Frank Clark, but fewer pressures than Frank Clark. So you look at the needs of this team, I just think it's incredibly obvious that it's that position. They do need a running back as well. Like, their running backs are not producing as well. I just think in the totality of the way the Chiefs run the offense, it's important but less so than these other positions that they potentially have some needs as well.
I think what's fascinating about this discussion too is we sort of get pigeonholed in our own boxes too. Like, who have the Chiefs faced pass rush wise the past 4 weeks? I mean, they've faced Max Crosby, they faced Von Miller, they faced everybody in the NFL, like the best pass rush edge rushers that there are. And so I think sometimes you get this perception of like, hey, this is how the whole NFL is, when really the Chiefs have sort of faced a schedule that has been pretty crazy. I looked it up, and Sam, this was a great offseason discussion we all talked about, but kind of how the pressure percentage hasn't turned into the sack percentage for the Chiefs. Anybody want to guess what the Chiefs' pressure percentage is this year? On what would you guess? Are they rank in the NFL? Just without looking at it. Got a guess?
Low.
It's 11th. I just looked up the PFF pass rush grade for the Chiefs. Anybody want to guess? 11th. So again, this seems like a glaring weakness, and sure, we know that Spagnuolo has covered some of this up because he's blitzed, and guys like L'Jarius Sneed have gotten really good pass rush grades, that sort of stuff. But yeah, the development of Karlaftis is really important to kind of speak to this, because they do have guys like, especially Chris Jones, and we can talk about that other position too, where they've been all sorts of banged up. That defensive tackle next to Chris Jones, they've had to circle guys through. They have not had consistency at that spot too, where you can generate pass rush from the inside too as well. This doesn't just have to be an edge thing, but it's kind of interesting to me how all these numbers kind of are floating in different directions, and it's hard to sort of grasp exactly how big this problem is, knowing that Spags blitzes, knowing that the Chiefs have had some success pass rushing, but not always consistent. So it is one of those questions, but I agree with Sam in the general point, which is if you're going to make one short-term move, which is probably what they're looking at. They're looking at one short-term move. You're probably looking at either defensive line or you're looking at some sort of running back. And that's kind of the plug-and-play thing I think that could help this team that really wouldn't impact their future that much.
Hey, this is Blair. There are several ways to access the Star Sports section. Let me tell you about a couple of them. There's Sports Pass. For $12.99 a month, you get unlimited digital access to all the Star Sports content, including beat writing, columns, features, pretty much everything we write. The deal renews monthly until you tell us to cancel. For $159.99 a year, you get everything the Star has to offer digitally, including sports and the e-edition. Go to kansascity.com and drop down to the bottom of the page where it says Start a Subscription for more information. Your support has never been more important. As always, thanks for reading and listening. Just a reminder, you're watching SportsBeat Live, our weekly conversation about the Chiefs with Jesse Newell, Sam McDowell, and Vahe Gregorian. Might be worth a reminder that over the past few years, when the Chiefs have added players during the seasons, the ones that had the most impact were defensive linemen, weren't they? Ingram last year, I go back to the 2019 season when they added Mike Pennell. He was an inside guy, but did a really nice job for the Chiefs in his year and a half here. Terrell Suggs was a Chief for a short time as well. So isn't it interesting that, to me, our conversations have been about what teams are doing to stop the Chiefs, which have been kind of widely acknowledged as the best team in football since, Mahomes' second year as a starter, when they're the Super Bowl year. And now we're talking about what the Chiefs need to do to catch what we think is the better team in the Buffalo Bills. It's just a different place. And it changes the conversation a little bit. And, I think it's a great tribute to Brett Veach and Andy Reid to keep the Chiefs at or near the top of the NFL, for as long as they have. But it's it's a little bit of a different place right now for the Chiefs.
I think it is, and look, that we know enough about them to understand that they get that, right? That you wouldn't challenge Brett Veach's energy and imagination, right? I mean, the guy is kind of ever churning, and it'd be great to have kind of a GoPro cam on him right now, trying to see what he's doing, because he's just wired that way, and I think over time certainly has proven to have a good sense of their needs and the ability to fill in. Some things have worked out better than others because they're willing to take chances. But I think you're right that we're looking at a bit of a different order, although I'd still like to see the game last Sunday where Willie Gay and McDuffie are playing. And, I mean, the Bills had some people they're down too, of course. But I think this is I'd call it more of a coin toss with the Bills. If the Chiefs can fill some element of this on the D line and just create more juice there.
Look, it's a really attractive job for an edge rusher because you've got Chris Jones getting constant attention on the interior. I mean, when you look at the pressure numbers, I mean, Jones leads all interior linemen with I can't remember what the number is, but not even Aaron Donald has more pressures this year than Chris Jones from the interior. That includes Chris Jones playing some snaps on the outside too. And you wonder about, as we sit here and discuss what we think the Chiefs' biggest needs are, we can take our clues from the Chiefs themselves. They've lined up Chris Jones on the outside, despite that never being the plan this year. Like, they think they need some help getting some more from that spot. So I don't know. I guess I'll probably repeat myself a little bit, but I come back to it, and I just think it's pretty obvious what the Chiefs need most. And Blair, you made a great point with they've had more success at this position than they have any other. When you talk about midseason acquisitions, you look at their midseason acquisitions on offense, and they're typically aging players who used to be good, who don't end up giving them much in the end. And Odell Beckham is not an aging player. He is coming off of an injury. I do think there's some question mark there about what he's going to give you in the end. And you've only got probably one move in you because of the cap space. And I just think you could be more economical with that elsewhere.
Real quick, too, I mean, I know we talk about the Chiefs chasing the Bills, and that's absolutely what's happening. But I saw a tweet from Aaron Schatz from Football Outsiders. Buffalo right now is the first team in the last 19 years to end a week number one ranked in their numbers in offense and number one ranked in their numbers in defense. So I think part of this, we just sort of have to tip the cap to the Bills, right? I mean, the Chiefs are chasing the Bills, and that is happening, but the other 30 teams are chasing the Bills too. And so being second place in a year where basically any other year you might be first place, that still deserves credit. It just means that the Chiefs are behind, and they're behind because the Bills built up a superpower. They've got Josh Allen on a very cheap deal, and they've got other places where they can throw money and bring in guys. And even when they're a little bit hurt, they're still really effective. So again, this is sort of goes back to the old cliche, the other guys are trying too. But I do at least want to mention that, like, just because the Bills are really, really good doesn't mean the Chiefs aren't doing well in their own right. I just think this year they probably ascended above the Chiefs. And maybe they were that last year too, and the Chiefs won the coin flip game. But that's kind of my point. Like, the playoffs play into what the Chiefs are right now. Like, the Chiefs are going to have a 30, 35, 40% chance to win on the road against the Bills, even if the Bills have proven themselves to be a better team over the course of the season. So that plays in the Chiefs' favor, just like it played in the Bengals' favor a year ago. But I did want to give it like a little hat tip to the Bills because they're playing really well right now, and they have a great front office. They have a great quarterback. They have all those things that the Chiefs have too. And the fact that they've got passed up, the Chiefs got passed up, and they tried to rebuild and bring in some young guys this offseason, I don't know that there's much shame in that.
And by the way, they're barely worse than that team after all that Jesse just said. I mean, they're right in that game. Jesse looked at the drive with the Von Miller sack. I'd encourage people to go read that. 2 days earlier, I wrote about a different drive that I thought made the difference in the game. Like, they are right there with the team, which was my biggest takeaway from that game. Is I think all of us on this call thought the Bills were the best team going into the season, right? That gap is maybe not as wide as we thought, and it's basing a lot just on one of 17, but it's not like the Chiefs have this large gap to make up to the. You've got to catch up to the Bills. Like, you feel like you're right there after that game.
And I'll remind you that I think this is right. In the last 4 Super Bowls, I guess we're just assume that Buffalo ends up being the top seed in the AFC this year. But in the last 4 Super Bowls, so 8 teams, right? 4 Super Bowls. A top seed didn't win the Super Bowl. And I think only twice did a number 1 seed play in the Super Bowl. And that was the Chiefs against Tampa Bay and the 49ers against the Chiefs. Everybody else had to come off the pace and typically win a road playoff game to get there. Now, the Chiefs didn't have to do that in 2019, even though they weren't the 1 seed. They got to play at home and teams in front of them fell. And of course, last year for the Chiefs, they didn't have to play on the road, and they weren't the 1 seed. But you absolutely can get to where you want to go and not have the best record in your in your conference. And that's a little bit of a different position could be a little bit of a different position for Kansas City this season. We've had some great questions. I wish we could have gotten to more of them. Let's just take a couple real quick. How about a Carlos Dunlap take? David asked, he was supposed to add edge pressure. Is there a scheme, or has he fallen off? I actually think I don't know what his grades are, but I think Dunlap's been pretty decent for the Chiefs this year. Anybody graded him, or what does PFF say? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think earlier on he was really good. I think they were everything. It was interesting. We were having this discussion earlier that the Chiefs weren't able to sign Melvin Ingram. Then he was the AFC Defensive Player of the Month in September. But still, the discussion was sort of like, hey, Carlos Dunlap was pretty good for the Chiefs, especially that first month. I think it's fallen off a little bit lately, but he still ranks as one of the highest graded players. So I think it's been good. I think some of his contributions are sort of the run contributions, which he talked about when he signed here. He wanted to contribute in both ways. So I think he's been good. It's sort of a rotational piece when you're looking at this. And again, I think for the Chiefs, this is the other part of this we have to kind of wrap our minds around, which is they got basically no contributions from rookies against the Bills that last game. If the Bills and Chiefs play again, I bet they get lots of contributions from rookies. So we'll see how that all plays out. That Karlaftis question comes back again. But I do think Carlos Dunlap has been what they signed him for and been good enough. It's just he could use some help along with Chris Jones.
Well, that's definitely a developing story, the contributions from rookies. It's been nothing but praise for that class ever since they signed. And look, there have been moments of greatness. The Watson length of the field interception return to beat the Chargers. There have been moments for this rookie class, but I don't know, man. I saw that I don't know how to pronounce his first name, but the Bills cornerback who the Chiefs were considering, in the first round, Elam, the kid from Florida, make that pick in the end zone, winning the 50-50 ball that we talked about earlier, and thinking, I want to see that play from the Chiefs.
Blair, I was going through this a couple days ago, but look, their rookie class has been hurt by the fact that their top pick just hasn't been on the field but for a half.
Right.
But you haven't gotten anything out of them for that reason. Karlaftis has been underwhelming. Sky Moore isn't getting on the field much. Brian Cook isn't like a full-time player. He gets on in the dime packages. Leo Chanel has not made a play, even though he's been offered the playing time. Joshua Williams, I think, has been fine for a fourth-round pick. Like, you'll take that for a fourth-round pick. Darian Kernard, we didn't think was even going to make the roster. Jalen Watson has been great for a seventh-round pick. Probably not a guy you want in your starting lineup. Same with Pacheco. Great seventh-round pick. Probably not a guy you want to be your starting running back. Najee Johnson didn't make the team out of camp. That's a long list of draft class, and you're kind of searching for – you need some more over the back half of the season. You need these guys to develop, and there's guys on this list I think fit that mold. Sky Moore being one of them. I mean, you look at individual play basis, like Sky Moore's doing some good things. It makes me think that maybe Sky Moore doesn't have the full grasp of the playbook. I think Jesse and I observed that in OTAs, where we saw him coming out of the huddle going to the wrong side of the field in OTAs, and we thought, well, he's got a lot of time before the season starts, before week one gets here. Well, he's not playing that much, even though on a per snap basis, it looks like he's pretty productive, even if the ball's not being thrown his way, which I think that leads you to be optimistic that Sky Moore is going to take a jump over the second half of the season from where he is now. And look, a lot of these guys can. They're 7 weeks or 6 weeks in their NFL career. But it is notable that it hasn't quite happened yet.
Yeah, let's be honest about those top guys, Sam. Brian Cook was out with a concussion. Trent McDuffie is out with a hamstring. Sky Moore just isn't getting in the lineup yet, which I think is a problem that will be solved by weeks 15, 16, 17, 18, because you'd rather have it this way, right? You'd rather have him not play as much and be productive when he's in and learn the offense rather than be in there a bunch and not be as productive. And I talked to him in his locker last week. He said, hey, 2 months ago, me would be proud of me right now. And he said, I've been studying, I've been trying to catch up, but so much of what I've learned is just I've had to be here. I've had to be on the field, that sort of thing. I think that'll just get better over time. And real quickly, Sam, you said that nobody would want Isaiah Pacheco as their starting running back. I think we can all agree from what you say that I think of Isaiah Pacheco that I would definitely want him as my starting running back, only behind Ronald Jones, who is still going to get his chance at some point. I promise you, right? Maybe not.
All right, guys. Great conversation. Really enjoyed it. And we'll pick up on a few of these thoughts. I really would like to explore the rookie class a little deeper on another show. And maybe we'll see some strides of improvement from some of those players. That'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production staff of Monty Davis, George Howard, Randy Mason, and Jeff Rosen. A tip of the cap to Herbie Teope, Vahe Gregorian, Jesse Newell, and Sam McDowell for making the show go. Morning Sports Edition was loaded with local coverage today. You had college basketball media days for the Big 12 and SEC, Chiefs and college football news, plus the baseball playoffs, NFL news, and so much more. Hey, you know what? I heard that today is the 26th time in history that games will be played in the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NBA, and NHL. Doesn't happen often on the same day. Well, they'll all be covered in tomorrow's Morning Sports Edition. Go to liveedition.kansascity.com for more information. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC.